Afternoon, John. Thank you very much for talking to us. The first question, when did you first take an interest in music?
Oh, at a very early age, I suppose, when I was, goodness me, I'm not quite sure when it would have been. My grandfather used to give me records, though, after the war. It was mainly dance band things and so on. But the first record I ever bought myself must have been when I was about 10, I suppose, 11, something like that, which was Blue Tango by Ray Martin and his concert orchestra.
How and why did you get into broadcasting?
Well, I used to listen to the American Forces Network and to Radio Luxembourg when I was a kid, and I always thought how nice it would be to do radio programs, because I rather naively assumed that all of the DJs on those stations chose the records that they played, unless of course they were doing like a top 10 program or something. And so I decided that's what I would like to do, and it was obviously quite some time before I actually got started on it. The first radio programs I did when I was about 25, something like that, in Dallas, Texas, and I was doing a rhythm and blues program late at night for a radio station there.
How long will you continue?
Well, that's a difficult, impossible answer, really. I mean, a lot of that may be up to the BBC. I like doing radio programs and want to go on doing them. And I don't know, you know, I think when the time comes that I'm not enjoying contemporary music in any way, then I should hopefully still be able to go on doing programs covering the period, you know, of stuff that I do like.
Has involvement in music and in broadcasting changed your life at all?
Well, obviously, because it's been basically, you know, has been my life, really. I was an office boy until I was about 25, and then I became a DJ, and have been one ever since, so it's clearly changed my life substantially.
Do you still like the type of music you played 10 years ago?
Well, some of it. I mean, you know, the best of it, I suppose. I think you should always be embarrassed by what you've just done, in a sense. When I listen to programs from last week, you know, and I'm not, if I find them embarrassing, and I think that's quite a good way to feel about it, because if you don't feel like that, I think you might as well stop working, really. I mean, if you become complacent or pleased with yourself, it's time to stop.
What is your current taste in music?
Well, it's last night's program. You know, I mean, it's always what I'm doing at any particular time. So it's the records that are on the list that I just showed you of things which are intended for use on the air.
How much influence do you think you have over your listeners?
Well, it's one of these things which DJs always like to claim that they've got an enormous amount of influence over their listeners, and clearly you can sort of prod them in the direction of things, just draw their attention to things which otherwise they might not know about. But it's not something which I think I care about. You know, I don't think I have that much influence. I think, you know, they make up their own minds pretty much.
Do you find record companies try to exploit you at all?
They never have done. No, it's one of these things people always hope will be true, that you'll be able to tell them all kinds of colourful stories about attempts of bribery and so on, but nothing like that's ever happened to me, and I doubt if it's happened to any of the other DJs either. I
see. Do bands try and use you to further their career, apart from just getting you to play their music? They sort of try and say, oh, I'm a friend of John Peel, so therefore you must play me?
Well, I don't think so, no, because I don't think I would do them any good, frankly. I don't think most people would think, oh yes, so what? I mean, including me.
What do you think of the music press?
Well, I don't know. There's too much. I think there's too much infighting goes on within the individual papers, and too many sort of personality clashes. So, with the result that a lot of the review space is to be given over to people living out their own private agonies and fears in front of us all, which is interesting up to a point, but it's not what you buy the paper for, you know.
Are there anybody within the papers that you respect at all, or you have plenty of time for them? Listen to them?
Well, I mean, I read all of the music papers, and there are certain. I mean, I've got sort of various people that I know who work for the music papers who I like as human beings. But I tend to make my own mind up about stuff, really, and I think you have to, rather than be influenced by other people.
What do you think of the top 30? Do you think it's a true reflection of a nation's taste in music?
Well, I think it is, really. Yes, I mean, it's as accurate a reflection of that taste that you can possibly get, but bearing in mind that what most people want to hear is old records, So I mean, it's you could say it's an accurate reflection of the country's taste in contemporary records. But if you went back and you know, and what people still want to hear more than anything else is things like 10cc's, I'm Not in Love, and old records which they associate with sort of incidents in their past and so on. But as a reflection of what's going on at the moment, I think it seems to be always fairly accurate, with reservations. I mean, there are things like the black community is almost entirely overlooked by the people who put the charts together, because the shops that they consult aren't shops that sell reggae records in any kind of quantities, and also the kind of records that I play on my program sell often in very large numbers indeed, as was demonstrated recently by that Pigback single, which to listeners to my program is like an old record, and was then. It was about a year old or something, and so records will sell very, very strongly in amongst those shops, and they're not chart return shops.
How do you feel when a record you first play does get chart success and even reaches number one, like Captain Sensible, if I dare mention him?
Well, yes, I must have, I'd like to be able to say yes, I think it's terrific and it makes me feel really proud, but it doesn't at all. I mean, it's just it's my job and my interest is to find good or amusing records and play them on the radio. What happens to them subsequently, to be honest with you, doesn't interest me that much. I mean, obviously you want people to like the same things that you like, but at the same time, I'm not terribly concerned about it. So I'm not really interested in this business about where people want to be able to claim that they made a band or they made a record, or without them none of these things would have happened. I don't think that's important or interesting.
What are your interests outside broadcasting?
Well, football, I suppose, more above anything else, and my family. I've got obviously a wife and 4 children, of whom I'm very, very fond, and I like to spend as much time as I can with them, really, because they're all very little, and I suffered as a child through no fault of my own or his from having an absentee father, because he was away fighting the war, and unlike a lot of kids my age, he did come back, but I was very anxious to avoid being an absentee parent as well, and as I don't live in London, I do spend a lot of time away from home. So when I do have the time to go home, look at spend time with the children, then I do.
What's your favourite football team?
Liverpool.
Favourite player?
Kenny Dalglish, I suppose. I mean, I've supported Liverpool. I should say that I supported Liverpool since I was 7. So it's not like a lot of people say, oh well, of course everybody supports them because they win everything. I mean, I can remember when they were 16th in the 2nd division, and I was, in a sense, cared more for them then than I do now, in a way, because you felt they needed you more.
Would you like to see any of the Italian World Cup winning team play for Liverpool?
Not really. No, there were 1 or 2 players, quite a few players in the World Cup that I'd quite like to see playing in English football or British football. Because I think the English football is deeply and desperately boring at the moment, as was demonstrated by our team, which you knew wasn't. I mean, when they trotted onto the field against Spain and West Germany, you knew a goalless draw was the only possible result that was going to come out of it. And but when you consider that that the team's now been taken over by Bobby Robson, who spent like 10 years as a bridesmaid but never a bride, and his major contribution to our cultural life has been Paul Mariner. You really fear for the worst. But I'd like to see some of the. There's like a couple of the 2 black lads actually who played for France, Trezeguet, and I can't remember the name of the other one. Yeah, so I'd really like to see them playing. And there was a fellow who played for, was it Honduras, called, was it Costly or something like that?
Yeah.
Who I thought was really good
The
as
big
well.
number 6.
That's right, yes. And a lot of really good players that you just think would bring something to English football. But, sorry.
Yeah, you're talking about football. Would you like to see someone like Zico or Eder?
No, in a way, not really, because I mean they're so developed as players. The people I'm talking about not sort of in a sense reached their peak, as other people have, and frankly, I think they'd be destroyed by playing in the English First Division, because I just think the things that they're so skillful at and the things they do so well, rather like Dalglish in a way, who obviously is superb in the Liverpool team, but does nothing for Scotland, because they're not playing that same kind of football and they don't have that same sort of understanding. So if you took somebody like Falcao, I thought was the best player in the World Cup. I mean, if you took him and had him playing for something like West Bromwich or something like that, I mean, it would just be quite ludicrous, really. And it's rather like when you get a watch, you know, and you have a nice old watch and you try and put new parts in it. The watch won't work because the parts just don't operate together. And it would be the same with something like that. So I rather fear, rather than the imported players bringing whatever team it was they joined up to their level, they would eventually be dragged down to the level of the team they were with.
Are you a very political or religious person?
Political, probably to a certain extent. Yes, I mean I've never been a joiner in things. The major political parties horrify me really, with their insensitivity and greed and so on. I mean so I'm not actually a joiner, but I'm political with a small p really. Religious, well, Liverpool's my religion actually. So.
Yeah. Well, you're the only person I know who celebrates Dalglishmas on the radio.
This is true. Yes, we have a festival each year. Yeah.
Would you ever like to move from presenting a programme into station management or programme controlling?
Not at all, no, because the idea of an administrative job really doesn't appeal to me. I mean, I'm a man who's totally without ambition, really, which I think is quite good. I think, you know, a great deal of problems we have to endure as a result of people being ambitious. And I just want to go on doing what I'm doing now.
Do you like working on television?
Not very much. I mean, I do Top of the Pops occasionally because it's I find it quite amusing, you know, and my children like it when I'm on there and so on. But when I first did it, I didn't enjoy it at all. I quite like doing it now.
Would you like to do a television version of your radio show?
I was offered the chance to do that actually a couple of years ago.
An interesting version of Old Grey Whistle Test.
Well, yeah, something like that. Yes, but I turned it down because. Yeah, I prefer the radio to television, and I think you have a better sort of relationship with the people who listen to your programmes than you do with the people who watch your programmes. And TV, however spontaneous it appears to be, is never spontaneous at all. At least with radio programmes, you're actually doing it then and there, and it goes out as it is, and you don't have to spend hours rehearsing camera angles and things like that.
Do you listen to the radio much yourself?
I do, mainly to the BBC World Service actually, because I think that the World Service is the best thing that the BBC do. And also I don't listen to a lot of music in the car because I do drive a lot, and I find that listening to music it makes me feel a bit sleepy because I do most of my driving late at night, and other DJs irritate me a lot of the time, so I don't listen to the radio.
Do you have any favourite presenter or someone who you really admire as a presenter?
Well, there are people like Humphrey Littleton, whose work I've always enjoyed, introduces the various jazz programmes. I'm not that keen on the music, but I like him, you know, because you feel that he's actually involved with it and is listening to it and enjoying it, and it's not just... and Alan Dell, who does the Dance Band Days, is another wonderful programme, I think. And amongst sort of more traditional broadcasters, obviously people like John Arlott and so on, who... again, it's just anybody who gives the impression, at least, and I'm sure it's not just an impression, because I mean, you can tell, I think, when people are faking it, when people are doing something that they care passionately about, and that's always good to hear. And I think of my Radio 1 colleagues, the people whose work I enjoy most are Peter Powell and Kid Jensen.
Is that because they present sort of more music that's away from the main line? They sort of do tend to go around the fringes. You've got Peter Powell, who does his jazz funk things, and Kid Jensen always seems to be trying to compete with you to dig up the most sort of obscure band or trendy band, dare I say.
Well, I suppose there's an element of, yes, I mean, obviously you're not going to like a programme which reflects absolutely nothing that you like, so I suppose that is true. Yeah.
Who are your heroes?
Goodness me, all kinds of strange people like George VI and a whole list of footballers quite clearly, and who are my heroes? Lord, I don't know really. I don't have that many. Goodness me, I don't know. I could make a list. I was like a compulsive maker of lists, but offhand I wouldn't be pushed for an answer for that.
If you weren't a disc jockey, what would you be doing? Still an office boy?
I'd probably still be an office boy, yes. I have no qualifications or aptitudes or talents for anything else. So, I mean, I don't Being a DJ, as you know, it's not a difficult thing to do. Although obviously the whole illusion of Radio 1 DJs depends on us convincing the public that what we do is actually terribly clever and very difficult. But it's neither of those things really, which is why I always find the kind of the acclaim and notoriety that attaches itself to DJs has always struck me as being faintly ludicrous, you know, and rather embarrassing when you come across it. When like people occasionally come and say, "Can I have your autograph?" and things, you always just feel so stupid, you know.
Do you have an ultimate ambition?
Not really. I'd like to live to an enormous age, and I'd like to, I'd like, you know, I'd like my wife and I to die simultaneously. And that sounds rather morbid, but I certainly couldn't live without her, and I like to think that she, you know, that she'd feel the same way. So I hope that we both live to be an immense age and then die rather nicely in bed together. I think that's basically what I would like.
Well, John Peel, that's all my questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.